10. The purpose of this watch is to allow the user to simultaneously keep track of time in more than one time zone. I'll tell you how that's done after we talk a little bit about the specifications. The case and bracelet are crafted from 904L stainless steel. With the exception of these two solid end links, here and here, the links on the bracelet itself are hollow. There's a fold-over clasp with an additional safety clasp to keep the watch more secure on the wrist. The case back is screwed in, and the twin lock screw-down crown gives the watch a water resistance rating of 100 meters, about 330 feet. The crystal is flat sapphire and has a Cyclops date magnifier at the 3 o'clock position. The hands and indices are white gold and filled with superluminova. The bezel is 120 click and bidirectional. This is a COSC certified movement, and inside beats Rolex caliber 3185, going at 28,800 beats per hour with a power reserve of 50 hours or so. This particular GMT keeps about +2 to +3 seconds a day, so it's doing pretty good. The bezel insert is aluminum, and as you can see, there are two different colors. This is commonly referred to as a Pepsi bezel, and the blue part of the bezel denotes evening, and the red part of the bezel denotes daytime. Now, how do you read this watch? Right now I have my local time, let's zoom in a little bit here, set at a little bit past 2 in the afternoon, and today's the 21st. Now my 24-hour hand, which is this hand here, is currently on GMT time, which is at 1800 hours, or about 6 in the evening. Now, the reason why it's called a 24-hour hand is that it takes 24 hours for this hand to make one revolution around the dial. So henceforth, we'll call this the 24-hour hand, and this hand will be the 12-hour hand. Now, how do you use this watch? Now, as I mentioned before, I have this particular hand set on GMT time. Now, theoretically, you can set it to whatever time you want. You could set it to, let's say, the West Coast only. You could set it to Tokyo. You could set it to and your favorite foreign country, whatever. But I prefer to keep it on GMT time because I like to reference everything from GMT. So whatever country or time zone I'm interested in, all I have to do is remember or to know whether it's ahead of GMT or behind GMT and by how much. For example, I have this time, as I mentioned, I have this local time set at the Eastern Standard Time, which is currently 4 hours behind GMT. So how do I show that? I take the 4 here, and I rotate it until it lines up with the 4 o'clock indice on the dial, like so. 4 o'clock, 4 o'clock. So right now the 24-hour hand is displaying 1400 hours, which is correct. That's 2 in the afternoon. So basically, wherever I am in this world, as long as I remember that Eastern Standard Time is currently 4 hours behind GMT, I'll always know what time it is in the Eastern Seaboard. Now, supposing I'm ahead of GMT. Let's say I want to know what time it is in Paris right now. Paris is +2 GMT. Now, for plus, you do something a little bit different. You line up, let's say, the 2 here with the 12 o'clock marker. So that would be plus 2 GMT. So right now in Paris, it's 8 in the evening. Okay? So one more time. If you're minus GMT or behind GMT, you line up the number on the bezel insert with the corresponding number on the dial. So this would be, for example, this would be minus 4 GMT. Plus 4 GMT, for example, would be like this. Okay, so for plus, you line up the number with the 12 o'clock marker, and that would be plus. So I hope that isn't too confusing. Now, how do you set the time? Well, as you probably guessed, everything is done through the crown. If you unscrew the crown, the first click, I don't know if you heard that or not, you can wind the watch like so. Now you gently move it to the second click. Bear with me. Okay, I don't know if you heard that or not. It's very subtle. And now you can set the local time. You see how the hour hand moves independent of everything else? So for example, let's say I fly to California. Let's say I just got off at LAX. Okay, I know that's 3 hours behind New York City, let's say, or 3 hours behind the Eastern Seaboard. So what I'll do is I'll set it to 11 o'clock. Okay, so voila. Now I've got local time set in California. So if I'm in California right now, it's 11 o'clock. Now supposing I want to display the time in New York City. Now once again, New York City is minus 4 GMT. So take the 4, line it up with the 4 on the dial, the 4 o'clock indice on the dial, and now you're showing 1400 hours, or 2 in the afternoon in New York City, or some other place on the Eastern Seaboard, or the Mid-Atlantic states. So let's set the, let me show you how to set the date. The way you set the date, you have to keep rotating this until you get the appropriate date. Okay, watch that date window. Right now it's displaying the 21st. Now, boom, 22nd. Now I can also go backwards as well. So if I want to go back to the 21st, okay. Now finally, if I pull the crown all the way out, I can hack the watch. Now it's stopped, so I can hack the watch. I can also now set my 24-hour hand. And once again, I can set it to whatever time I want, whatever time zone I want. As I mentioned, I prefer to keep it on GMT time. So what I usually do, I pull the crown out all the way to set GMT time, and then I set the hour hand, the 12-hour hand, and then set the date. Let's see what time it is. It's a little bit past 2:05, let's say. And then you screw the crown back down. Anyway, I hope that wasn't too confusing. It's a fun watch to have, and it's fairly practical. There are probably easier ways to tell GMT time. You could probably get G-Shock, and it'll provide you with a gazillion different time zones. But this is fairly simple and easy to use once you get the hang of it. And you know, it's very, very, how should I say, analog. You could pretty much tell at a glance what time it is and whether it's daytime or nighttime in your in the other time zone. As an example, last year I brought this watch to New Zealand, and I had to change time zones constantly because I was, you know, every time I went to, let's say, get a connecting flight or something, time zone would be different. So I kept switching time zones back and forth, and it worked out pretty well. So there you have it, the GMT Master 2. Hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope it clarified how to set this watch, because I think a lot of people do get a little bit confused with this. Okay, so I hope this was very helpful. If so, I've pretty much accomplished my goal for today.